We talk Ohio State football here at MarkRogersTV each and every week with these three distinguished Buckeye beat writers. We got Kevin Noon on the top from Buckeye Grove. We got Steve Hellwagon from Bucknuts, and of course Tony Gerdeman from Buckeye Scoop, talking Ohio State football. And we actually want to emphasize in the future, football would be nice. Ohio State football that we can discuss, and not politics and legal procedures and so forth. All right, Steve, we'll start with you because I think we just need to dive right into it, but we'll encourage everybody, obviously, to dive into the live chat. Leave your comments, your questions, your debate topics for us, but let's focus on whether we're actually going to have football and when that could possibly take place. So, Steve, once the season was canceled, or as the Big Ten office likes to say, postponed until spring, it was thought that there would be some area of a calendar in the February-March range, and then it was moved up into January, and we've discussed what that timetable looks like and the benefits, or more so the long list of negatives involved in that type of football approach. And then Thanksgiving weekend, rumored to be considered. And now people are actually getting excited because October 10th was thrown out just a few days ago after a conversation between President Trump and Kevin Warren and some other folks. And so people that just want to watch football are excited about October 10th, but we understand that the Big Ten presidents have nothing on their calendar, on their agenda to actually meet to discuss and vote on that.
Yeah, it's kind of an ongoing story that just has no end to it. I think that when it was brought up maybe a week or so ago that they would maybe try and play some games in the calendar year of 2020 and Thanksgiving, that kind of gave people a little bit of hope. The president getting involved, and you can take politics, any way you want with this discussion, but he tried to clear out some hurdles, it sounds like, with tests and different protocols that they could enact. And so I don't know. It's hard to know who to believe or what to believe at this point. There are indications that some of the schools have begun practicing in earnest in hopes that there would be games, real games in October. And so I don't know what to say. Michigan State put a thing out labeling it the first day of preseason camp. So, people know something, but I don't think that the presidents and the commissioner wanted to make a knee-jerk reaction after Kevin Warren talked to Donald Trump, because they didn't want the appearance that the president was dropping a lightning bolt and they were just falling in line. They want it to be their own decision. And yet last night we watched a game, South Alabama and Southern Miss. Looked like there's probably 10,000 people in the stands, that they're playing games with people in the stands and appeared socially distant. I mean, there were small groups of people, but by and large, there was a good spacing to a lot of it. And yet the Big Ten can't play at all. So I don't know if we'll hear something today. You hope that we will, but again, this thing's been terribly mismanaged from the start. Everybody knows how I feel about it, and I'm sure I'll hand the baton off to Kevin because he's probably paid a little bit more attention to what's been making the rounds today than I have. So I'll pass the baton over to him and listen to what he's been able to come up with today.
About the only thing I know right now is, I'm down for some day drinking because this whole thing has been exhausting at this point. We learned that there's not going to be a council of chancellor and presidents meeting today. Nebraska's brass came out and said, well, we're unaware of one and we're sitting in the same room together right now, so one isn't happening today. The eternal optimist could say that maybe something percolated last night and they're just waiting to release it. I think the rest of the world, who are filled with pessimists and realists, are like, here we go again. We're going to wait another day or whatnot. The Pac-12 had news yesterday that they'd signed on with a testing partner. And what also came out of this is this desire by Larry Scott for the Big Ten and the Pac-12 to link up and align their seasons and have some old-timey bowl games together. You know what else is old-timey? Cholera, smallpox, the life expectancy of 34. We make progress for a reason. And if you're going to align to any conference, it doesn't need to be that garbage barge that's the Pac-12. You need to get in line with the other conferences that will be participating in a college football playoff if a season goes off correctly. And as Steve mentioned, we did see there were two football games. One was relegated to ESPN 3. It took me a minute to find it because I thought it was on ESPN Plus, but there was a game there, and there was a game on CBS Sports Network. Central Arkansas has played on back-to-back Thursdays, so either they're filled with just immortals, or they've figured something out, or we're just being lied to about what's going on in this whole situation. I'm thoroughly disgusted with the pace that this is moving at. And honestly, maybe October 10th, there are going to be some people out there who say that that's a case of being optimistic. But I think that this whole Thanksgiving plan is stupider than January. I mean, getting into a situation of where you're just starting up your season as the rest of college football is getting ready to get into conference championship games, the college football playoff and whatnot. I mean, yes, I've always been team some football is better than no football, but I mean, we could sit there and I mean, it's just such a horrible decision. I can't even keep myself edited and give my opinions on this. Just every foul word in the English language is coming to mind right now. I'm so incensed about the stupidity and the lack of leadership, and just really, I think that the people who are making the decisions just think we're stupid. I think they think we're stupid and willing to accept anything. And the reality is, we're so starved for football. We're going up and down the channel guide to find anything, and they could play college Big Ten football at any point, and we'll watch it begrudgingly.
Well, and when you say they think we are stupid, there's no doubt about that. And I think they also fear looking stupid by going back on their own word and restarting the season. So I think there's some of that. And so they have to weigh, do we want fall football TV money, or do we want to admit we were wrong? And the thing is, they don't have to admit they were wrong. They can just say, we've got more information. We talked to the president. We've got federal aid. There are reasons. The heart issue, what they originally cited, has been debunked. And you've got plenty of people saying that there are reasons to play because, hey, we're watching it. I'll be at my third high school football game in 3 weeks tonight. So football is existing. And so these guys and gals have an opportunity to not necessarily admit a mistake, but write a course and get back into a way that intersects with the college football playoff. And then to, out of the blue, start hearing the Pac-12 talking yesterday, when I've been perfectly happy to have them completely silent. I don't need to hear from the Pac-12. And then to hear them, talking about how much they love just holding hands with the Big Ten and watching the sunset and taking long walks on the beach with Kevin Warren. I don't need to hear that. We've had to deal with the whole Big Ten Pac-12 love affair for way too long. The Big Ten has been burned by it already with the whole thing, with the scheduling thing that was supposed to happen, I think, in 2017. And so Ohio State had to cancel some SEC series. And then the Pac-12 was like, no, we don't want to do that anymore. And so the Big Ten's like, oh, okay, well, you still have our numbers. So call us if you ever, And so then now the Pac-12 is like, yeah, we really want to do stuff with the Big Ten. And I'm worried here, like, oh, God, the Big Ten always wants to be with the Pac-12. They love the Rose Bowl. And sure, the Rose Bowl is great. The Rose Bowl in March, I think it's just a game played at the Rose Bowl in March. I don't see that being the Rose Bowl. It's just a game at the Rose Bowl. Being attached to the Pac-12 is no incentive to play in the winter unless you are already going to play in the winter and you're like, yeah, let's let's rock on with the Pac-12 and get aligned. But that's no incentive. There are playing with the Pac-12 is an incentive like you like to enjoy the feeling of a Charlie horse going away, so you give yourself a cramp, right? There's no sense to it, and they could play if they wanted to. right in 5 weeks. The coaches told us they wanted 6 weeks back 3 months ago. Said we would like 6 weeks to get ready, 2 weeks of strength and conditioning, 4 weeks of practice. For the last 2 months, they've been strength and conditioning. They can go ahead and play by October 10th. I don't see a problem with that. Illinois or Iowa's AD says they would need a medical miracle. How? Are you are you talking about like you need actual miracles because you are ridden with, as Kevin said, like cholera, or do you have several different diseases going across the campus that you need actual medical miracles? Or do you just not want to get things ramped up? And this is also frustrating. And one day in the next 6 to 8 months, when this is finally behind us and we all know what's going on, I will look forward to being on this show and talking about football, basketball, whatever. Or maybe it's just going to become a show about how the president tried to save Big Ten football and the Big Ten said, no, thanks.
If the Big Ten is married to the Pac-12 because of the Rose Bowl in and of itself, that's asinine. And if it's married to the Pac-12 for any other reason, I would love to know what those reasons are, because I couldn't state it any more fervently, succinctly, or accurately than Kevin did. But the Pac-12 is insignificant in major college football right now. Obviously, they still play big-time college football, have a lot of great players, decent teams, and so forth. But in terms of a national brand, their reputation has just been trashed by bad decisions and just being irrelevant, even in their footprint. And we see that based on the response to the decision that they've made versus the response that we see by Big Ten fans, players, and coaches and parents to the Big Ten's decisions. So my goodness, I certainly grew up in awe of the Rose Bowl, and that being a special place near and dear to my heart. But if that's the impetus, and as Kevin points out, we got to move on. If we're being outdated here, then it's being that tied to a Rose Bowl game between and being married with the Pac-12. That's just insane. I don't know why the Big Ten would have such a self-esteem issue, considering from just about every angle that you can talk about money, football actually being played on the field, it's the best or the second best conference by any measurement.
Yeah, I'm dumbfounded by any thought that they would be hooked up with the Pac-12, I guess for a winter season. I don't even know. I mean, that's not what people want. And I had a friend last night who said the Big Ten is just getting shredded over this decision. And they didn't take any of this into account, how it was going to play out. And they can't explain why they did what they did. And that's that right there in a nutshell. He kind of summed it up in like one long run-on sentence that, they're just hopefully inept at what they're trying to do here, are hopelessly inept. And it just, it's mind numbing that we're at this point. And the real season was supposed to start last night. Ohio State was supposed to play at Illinois, and that was obviously canceled. Their original opener was Saturday against Bowling Green. And obviously that when they went to conference only, that fell through. So, what we're lacking is some vision and leadership here in this situation. And in a sense, the Big Ten has poured cold water on Ohio State's juggernaut, and just said it got a little too hot. And I think they're trying to bring Ohio State back down to the rest of the group. And honestly, what we don't have right now are Ohio State people running the university or the athletic department. They're good people, I would assume, Christina Johnson and Gene Smith. And maybe one day somebody will think outside the box and say, the Big Ten's been great for us since 1915 or whatever year we joined it, but the year's now 2020, and we're ready for the next step, whatever it may be. And I think there's potential out there to form one mega league with like-minded schools that want to put football first. And I don't think it's a bad thing to say that or to think that. And I just think that the values that Ohio State has just aren't in mesh with what the Big Ten values seem to be at this point.
There are about 6 things I want to say here because Steve touched upon a lot of great points, but I'm going to stick with my original one. The Big Ten ended up going out and getting this crisis PR firm to come out and handle their messaging. And they came out with this oddly crafted and incredibly tone deaf, the hashtag, the B1G difference. Well, there is a B1G difference. Just the stupidity of the conference leadership at this point. And this firm that they're using is feeding the national media right now who are out there doing their bidding, putting their message out there and seemingly, pardon my language, just crapping on the opportunity for there to be a football season in any timely manner. And God forbid if you should run afoul of them, because they will get on you like jackals. They, in pack mentality. And to just illustrate this point, a piece came out in the Center Daily Times, paper that covers Penn State, about the heart complications that are associated with COVID or whatnot, and something along the lines, and I didn't read it closely because I'm like, here we go again. 30 to 35% could have this or whatnot. Well, Corona Bro Power Activate, they all jumped in together and started running with it. And a doctor, well-respected doctor from the Mayo Clinic came in. It's like, whoa, I've already disputed this once. We're going to do this again. It ends up leading to a point of where this doctor, who probably was not placed in the right framework in terms of the Center Daily Times article, I'm not putting it all on the doctor, I'm saying there were some issues there, had to really backtrack a lot of things there. Did we hear anything from the pack of jackals? No. I mean, it's like the old joke about when you're sitting there playing a game and you feel that you're getting squeezed by the officials. And you're like, it's hard enough to beat one team, but it's hard enough to beat 2 teams when one of them's wearing the stripes. What really feels like we're having to not only go against just these forces that don't want there to be football for whatever liability issues or whatever the chancellors and the presidents have there, but there seems to still be this group of the media that would rather be right and unemployed rather than show a little contrition and present a fair picture for everybody. And that's about the best I can put there, as I'm already probably not invited to the next secret journalist meeting.
Well, it was maybe not even a week ago, because things fluctuate. And I tweeted something to the effect of, imagine being in a conference where Rutgers holds as much sway as Ohio State. And a writer from USA Today, quote tweeted that, and he's like, imagine saying this, 180,000 people have died in America. And sure, that's true. The numbers are the numbers, and it's terrible. But instead of attacking the people in the Big Ten who are trying to have football happen, or who are covering this angle of that think football can happen, why are we being attacked? Why is the Big Ten, the coaches, players, families being attacked for holding rallies? Instead of why are there no stories about how much danger the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC, there are no stories about how much danger they are putting their players in. Like if national writers are gonna applaud the Big Ten for keeping their players safe, why aren't they writing about the players being put in danger from the other conferences? And until they do that, I don't want to hear what you have to say, because you are very one-sided in all of this. You are trying to, I don't know, you're getting your message from the Big Ten in terms of what you're supposed to be saying. But if you're going to applaud the Big Ten, you also have to attack the other conferences for this crazy mixed up thing where you're practically giving these players coronavirus. You're trying to kill these players by making them play football, because obviously you believe what the Big Ten and Pac-12 are doing. You believe that is correct. So you must you should be believing that what everybody else is doing is wrong. And as a sports writer, we are, there's no, when you see something that you don't think is right, you don't suddenly think, you know what, I'm not going to write about that. I've got a really scathing column I could write about that, but I'm not going to do that. That's what you live for. You live for stuff to be able to rail on and just people to tear apart. And you've got a bunch of conferences playing football, a bunch of powerful people. Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney. You've got a bunch of people you can take to task. But no, we're just gonna make fun of Big Ten parents for wanting their players, their sons, to be able to play football. I heard a national radio show playing G. Scott Sr.'s comments from Saturday's demonstration and just laughing because he has the audacity to want Ohio State and the Big Ten to play football. Meanwhile, nobody is criticizing the conferences that are still playing for playing. So what is your problem?
No, they're cheering them. Oh, it's great to have football back. Shut up, you hypocrites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My son just texted me a message wanting to know if there was a meeting today. And I said, well, nobody's talking about it. And he honestly brought up a very good point in our little text conversation I just had with him. He's like, is it possible that the president and the commissioner of the Big Ten want to see how this weekend with football goes and next weekend, when the ACC in particular looks like almost a full schedule next weekend, and get through that first weekend or so of real major conference football and see, I mean, if they make a decision today to start the season in October, and then a week from now the ACC has to shut down or something, it would look kind of stupid. So, but all decisions are made in a vacuum. So perhaps he's on to something that maybe after this weekend or after next weekend, when everything goes smoothly, maybe that's when they'll jump in and decide, hey, we're going to play starting in a month. So, I think 4 weeks is plenty of time to get this thing on the road. And October the 10th, that means you'd start practice about September the 12th, something like that. That's plenty of time to get something. That's next Saturday. So that's plenty of time to get something going, I think, for a Big Ten only season. So hopefully we'll get it. I hope he's right. So we'll see.
So as you mentioned, Steve, Saturday, September 12th will be the day that both the ACC and the Big 12 will be in play. And if something is decided, if there, and I can understand based on the situation the Big Ten's put itself in, I can't understand it originally, but based on the situation that currently exists, maybe having that approach, let's see it play out for one weekend with the big boys on the field. And then if they make a rapid fire reversal decision, they could probably squeeze into October 10th. That would be pretty tight, but somewhere October 10th, 17th, 24th. Getting back to something Steve mentioned before, I would love to know if this, you guys feel that this is intentional or not. So you talked about the Big Ten's series of decisions pouring water on Ohio State, being red hot, dominating the conference and looking prime for a national championship, just not this year, but continuing to roll on into the future. Do we think that there could be some intent to that? Because we know that the circumstances are definitely pouring water on Ohio State, but the intent of that, when this is the only, and I when we talk about serious football competitors in the Big Ten and who takes it seriously, obviously it's not just Ohio State. Nebraska has failed on the field miserably, but man, they take Nebraska. Yeah, I'm counting them as well, Steve. We're probably at like 5 to 7, something. Well, I would think the Iowas and Minnesotas of the world are pretty serious about football with everything that they've poured into it. Maybe not anywhere close to the success of Ohio State, Penn State, etc. But just in regards to the only in this gold medal mentality sport and nation, the only reason the Big Ten gets attention is because of Ohio State competing nationally. They're it. I can't imagine that the Big Ten would sabotage that. I know that the internal jealousy, I can understand that, but the relevancy is only because of one team.
I would agree with what you're saying. I think it's not their objective was to stop Ohio State, but they are very happy that it's a byproduct. Let's just put it that way, that they were able to kind of slow down this juggernaut a little bit. And the recruiting is going to continue. They're still getting national top 100 guys, to commit, and it's still going on, rolling right along. You make a good point. Some of these schools don't make an effort to compete at the highest level. They don't spend. They take money out of what football brings in and put it to other stuff, and that's not the way that you're going to win. You need to reinvest in your program with facilities and people and everything else. And so about half of them do and half of them don't. And it's the whole thing's unfortunate. I don't know that they set out to do that to Ohio State, but I can assure you that they're not unhappy that it's happened. And I go back to my old Mountain West argument when they combined the WAC and the Mountain West into the 16-team mega thing, and then one school dominates it, and you have 15 people upset, So in this case, you got 13 people upset. So, they're going to do what they can to slow down the one.
My thoughts on this, I don't think that the presidents and chancellors are really that aware of it. They operate in their own little world where they're concerned about liability and lawsuits and linguistics classes and things like that. So they don't care as much about that. I think all the ADs are focused with how they're going to be able to make their budgets and whatnot and be able to support their Olympic sports and things that are negative, are revenue negative at this point. But I guarantee you that there are going to be some football coaches out there that don't want to be boat raced by Ohio State or the top teams of the conference and lose by 35 or 42, who could certainly feign this, we're not going to be ready in time or whatnot. And, while I'm not on the coaches' calls or anything, I certainly have heard things come out of them. And there are some coaches that are a lot more silent about how things are going on right now than others. I can guarantee you that Ryan Day knows what type of team he has, and he's been pounding the table. And there are some other coaches, especially in the West, that are probably not. I mean, I'm not talking about Nebraska. Nebraska and Iowa, to an extent as well, have both been very forward thinking on this. But other teams that have not really been as vocal here, because if you sit there and you play, even in November, you still may have some opt-outs of saying, well, we're not really playing for anything. To heck with this. I'm moving on. And if you can weaken the top teams and create more parity through ill-begotten ways, then do it. So, I mean, it is very disgusting. And I've got one coach in mind, and I may end up talking about him in a minute. I'm not going to at the moment, who certainly has not said anything at any point through media channels right now that make it sound like he has any intention of wanting to play. I think that if his university says we're going to play, they'll play. But it certainly doesn't feel like everybody's on the same footing here.
I would like to relinquish the rest of my time to Kevin so that he would name names.
I'll give you your time back here. You got to get me right when Mark asks a question. I'm my most pissed off. At that point, I'm liable to just sit there and run with it.
Well, drink a little bit. Yeah. I don't know if the Big Ten is happy to see Ohio State not in the title picture or happy to keep them out. I believe like the Big Ten is always about parity, all for one for all, that sort of thing. So they're as concerned about Rutgers as they are Ohio State, and Rutgers doesn't need to play this year, so why should Ohio State? It's all about whatever's best for the Big Ten, and I think what's best for the Big Ten is a national title, and I don't know that the Big Ten sees that, or maybe Kevin Warren does, maybe he doesn't, maybe he'll learn to see it that way. But it always struck me that Jim Delaney was always about, it's about everybody. But he also had a way of bringing everybody together to be on the same page. And this is just getting things done that he wanted to get done. And I don't know if Kevin Warren is there yet, or if he did get things done that he wanted done. Maybe he did want the season to be canceled or postponed. But I still wonder, like, if anything ever comes out and Ohio State finds out, like, or if Ohio State just doesn't like the way they were treated in all of this, would there be some ill will down the road, and what kind of avenues would there be towards independence or taking some other conference, or even can you maintain your status in the conference but also be granted your own media rights, that sort of thing, like a Texas thing? I just don't know how much, where other than the many millions of dollars being tied to Maryland and Rutgers and Indiana and Illinois as a football theme. Ohio State can do better than that. And it's just a matter of, do they want to, or are they happy being the big guy, being the big man on campus? Probably. I mean, it's served them well so far, but it's not serving them well right now.
Talk Ohio State football each and every week with Kevin Noon from Buckeye Grove on the Rivals platform. Right next to me, below me, you got Tony Gerdeman from Buckeye Scoop, and of course, Steve Hellwagon, senior Big Ten writer at 247 Sports Bucknuts. So we've got this alliance, and the thing that came to mind, the overarching theme of a lot of what you said there, Tony, to me, are irreparable damage to relationships in the Big Ten. I don't think that are ever going to be recovered. And I'm looking at Lincoln, Nebraska, first and foremost. They have made, with some of the moves that have been made by players officially, but also just the initial response by not just the football coach going off and everybody thinking, oh, well, of course, the football coach wants to play football and he doesn't care about anything else. But when the chancellor, the athletic director all say, we're going to do whatever we can to play football with or without the Big Ten. And then, sure, it's been pulled back since then, but they pretty much confronted the Big Ten, called them out, and said, almost showed that they are one of the newest members of the conference. Because that
nice
wasn't there.
Yeah, it's been nice just to see somebody speak against the conference, because it's so rare to see that in the Big Ten. And I guess it took one of the newer members to do that. Obviously, Rutgers and Maryland aren't going to speak against it because they're too busy counting their money. But it's nice to see the frustration laid out there from even just the fact that people are getting to talk to the AD, the president, all of that at Nebraska. They talk to the media. We haven't talked with anybody at Ohio State in a while. I assume some of it is because they don't know anything. Ryan Day may be too angry at this point to talk. But one of the frustrating things is we're getting updates on the Big Ten from the Pac-12, which is completely stupid, especially since the Pac-12 has been silent for a month or whatever. And now, that's all we've heard about the Big Ten is coming from the Pac-12. Yeah, we'd like to hook up. Let's do something. And we're talking to the Big Ten, talking to Kevin Warren every day. It's like, well, I'm glad somebody is, because Kevin Warren doesn't seem to be talking to anybody else. This entire way this is handled, even given the presidents and the chancellors are the ones voting on it, everybody involved has handled it poorly, and everybody involved should have to apologize for what they've done. Even if nothing changes, just apologize for how it's been handled and how it's been presented and how it's been relayed, and just apologize for being, basically.
Aren't Maryland and Rutgers both still on probationary JV payouts right now?
Yeah,
they should get a probationary JV vote for what's going on here. I mean, I'm not one for saying that we need to have some sort of poll tax in the Big Ten, but maybe you need to have done something at some point with as a conference member before you can have a full vote, or you're one of those guys at the meetings of the 5 families that has to sit on the outer edge of the wall or whatnot, and you have to kind of hand your note in or whatnot. I mean, I did see one of the images that you put up about them being the captain, Rutgers being the captain there, and I made a post a couple weeks ago about we live in a world where I said that Rutgers really shouldn't be making the decision about anybody, let alone Rutgers. It's a real sad state of affairs.
Terribly sad. again, I remain hopeful that today, next week, sometime we're going to get a green light and they'll be able to go ahead and practice. But, as I said, Michigan State yesterday, their social media people put out it was day one of preseason camp. Preseason of what? And here's something else that just came up. The NCAA is going to not allow early enrolling freshmen to play in the winter. Man, that kind of squeezes your roster a little bit because, okay, if you take Justin Fields and Shaun Wade off that team and maybe 2, 3, 4 other guys, 5, 6 other guys who are going to go play, get ready for the combine. I think Ryan Day was trying to recruit kids on the idea that they would be eligible to play in winter. And now I forget where the chairman of that group is from. I think he's from an ACC school. Where is he from? Did anybody see it? It
was on Twitter. It was a WVU guy.
Okay, West Virginia. And they're Big 12, obviously, and they're playing in the fall. To me, that rule's targeted toward the Big 10 and the Pac-12, obviously. So I don't know what the impetus of that is other than potential injury, I guess, for an early enrolling freshman to be thrown right into a football game. It would be kind of hard to do, in the first few weeks of January, I would think. But, I don't like that rule at all. I think that is that just seems pretty arbitrary to me. Seems like it was just something, you're trying to end around by doing this. Well, we're going to stop you. We're going to play our season now. You can't play your season then, and you can't play your season then with new freshmen. So I don't know, it just seemed a little heavy-handed, like mind your own business type thing is what I would say on that.
So with Shane Lyons, the head of the NCAA Football Oversight Committee, saying that that's going to be recommended to the NCAA, we pretty much think that's a done deal.
Yeah,
well,
when something comes out of D1 Council or whatever, it generally is adopted. It's not – I don't think that there's really going to be a good path in place for it to be disputed and for them to – it's also something you don't have time as an ally on. You can't – there's a little bit of time. But, if you're Jack Sawyer who gave up your senior season to get ready to be an early enrollee for the potential of doing that, and now it sounds like that's off the table. Do you try to opt back in or whatnot, or do you just sit there? You can't leave some of these guys in the lurch like that. Then again, everybody has been in the lurch for some time when it comes to Big Ten decisions or whatnot. So I guess that's just par for the course.
We have some pretty high-level high school football players that, in particular, none of us here definitely want to see a spring season. But if we're going to see anything other than a 2021 fall season, I would opt for the lesser of two evils and say, okay, I'll watch Big Ten football in the spring, even though it concludes with nothing gained. But a lot of football players, high prominent football players as well, are going to be missing a senior season that we're looking forward to stepping on campus, getting their collegiate career started and playing in the winter/spring or whenever it is. That's not going to happen if this passes.
Yeah, and now we have seen Michigan High School is now going to allow that to take place in the fall. So there's been some backtracking there. So you have Michigan High School being allowed. You've got Indiana High School football being allowed, Ohio High School football being allowed, and no Big Ten in any of those states. How about this, though? Like, Ohio State doesn't need a full schedule to show what they can do. If we're talking about a November 28th start, schedule Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, and whoever the fourth best, of the 5 best teams in the Big Ten, give Ohio State the top 4, the 4 others. Let them play them right in a row. That will coincide with the SEC championship game. Let Ohio State be if Ohio State beats Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, and whomever else, is that enough to be then drafted into the college football playoffs? Because when you were talking about quality wins, assuming that would be them, how many more? Beating Illinois does nothing for you. Beating Indiana does nothing for you. Beating Michigan State does nothing for you. Beating Northwestern does nothing for you. And so do those 4 wins against quality opponents equal Clemson's 2 quality wins and 8 non-quality wins. And of course, Ohio State would not go against the Big Ten because we know you never go against the family.
No, because when you sit there and you look at the new top 25 that'll come out with Big Ten and Pac-12 out, I mean, when you sit there and Ole Miss becomes a top 25 team, there's a process of elimination, and some of these middling ACC teams will sit there and be 20, 21. You're gonna have the argument of, well, they had 7 quality wins over top 25 teams at that point. And I say that a little tongue in cheek, but I mean the argument will absolutely be made.
There is absolutely no way they're going to put Ohio State in the playoff on the basis of 4 games. There's no way, because first of all, the Feinbaums and the Reese Davises and they would lose their stuff. I mean, they would lose their mind. They would go on television and say they had a chance to play a full season and didn't take it, and they only played 4 games. That's on them. They're not part of our process this year, and they'll put it in those terms. And
they should.
ESPN is not, I don't know. I just don't see it. I think all the talking heads would come out. They had their chance, forgetting the fact that concessions were made because of the virus. This isn't a perfect world this year. But I would agree with you, if they play those 4 games and would win those 4 games, they would show they deserve to be among the best teams in college football. But I can't imagine that they would allow that.
Yeah, well, to make some kind of criticism of that is acting like Ohio State is making a decision not to play football. Ohio State is helpless in this situation. Yeah. The 12-0 record looks nice. It looks great. That's what we expect to see out of a playoff team, or 11-1. But in all practicality, yes, rolling up the Rutgers, Maryland, Illinois wins, that's just practice time. It just warms you up for Penn State and Michigan and everybody else.
We'll play them after Clemson and Alabama.
It's like looking at dog food ingredients. The top couple of things, it's like meat and then chicken byproduct and then sawdust and filler. And Rutgers is the sawdust and the filler, and it's not any actual meat or food byproduct. And just focus on the top of the dog food ingredients, the neck meat and the chicken byproduct.
Close and trotters.
Exactly. That's what we're talking about here, and the rest is just Rutgers filler.
You guys have devised about every possible way to demean Rutgers football, every possible analogy, but I think Tony is really just.
They do a great job of it themselves.
I'm not disputing that in any way.
I had Jalen Gill's dad message me at some point jokingly. He's like, "Wow, you're being awful tough on Rutgers." Since Jalen is transferred, and I'm like, out of Ohio State. I'm like, yeah, well, it kind of is what it is.
I will say I have deleted a lot of tweets that I have tweeted about Rutgers over the years just because they're overly mean. But in the moment, what am I supposed to do? Control myself? No.
I think the first year that we covered a game there may have been 2015, I think. And Ohio State was winning so bad at the end of the 3rd quarter, I went outside for a fresh air break, and the athletic director, Julie Herman was her name, or I don't know, Julie something.
Yeah, I think it was.
And she was going through some rough patch there at that point. She had seen enough, and she was headed to her car at the end of the quarter. The Rutgers athletic director, she was done. So yeah, it I don't know.
For anybody who's a nerd out there like me,
dinner up in the press box that one year.
What's that, Kevin?
They feed us well there. We had like Thanksgiving dinner. They had like a turkey carving station. So you always get points for that. I mean, they were all
the good with the bad.
In Illinois, who charged us $8 for a week-old lasagna. $8. I mean, the margin
charging the media,
the Big Ten. It was horrible.
Illinois.
Are they the only ones?
They've done away with that policy since, but I mean, there were at least 2 trips where they did charge. You could pay for the meal, or you could kind of wait around for leftover hot dogs.
Michigan State gives you a coupon for like a drink and a brat. After that, you have to buy food. And what happened the first year that Meyer was the coach, I think 2012, it was a terrible game. It ended up like 17-16. And about the third quarter, again, I needed a fresh air break. And I went downstairs and bought a cheeseburger at the concession stand. And I missed the one play of the game. They threw a touchdown pass, I think, to Devin Smith in the third quarter. And I missed it. I'm out getting a cheeseburger because I'm starved. You know,
Steve, that was a bad game.
Oh, it was a terrible game.
You like to see fireworks, I guess.
No,
that was a great game. That's a Big Ten game.
That team in 2012, I mean, they won so many games like that by, you know,
Sure.
they had to go to overtime to beat Purdue, I think, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, it was.
Oh, yeah, that was the Kenny Guyton miracle.
It was not.
But
I
even
mean, they were an
against,
undefeated team, but they weren't a dominant team. And,
Sure.
You know.
But the good thing, and Mark, I'll let you get back to what you're going to say. The good thing about Michigan State is we do get post-game pizza. So there is that. While we only get, 2 tickets for a brat and a hot dog or a brat and a popcorn, we do get post-game pizza that is, ticket free, just first come, first serve. And then if you're crafty, you take a box home with you.
But if you stumble on your way back from post game,
forget
there's
it.
not much left. I mean, there's like cheese and like pineapple. Or something. I mean, there's not a lot of good options left because there are certain people that will take their box of pizza early.
God,
nobody on this chat.
No, it's like you end the interviews early. Like, Ryan Day's like trying to talk to you. Hey, you guys want to hang out? No, don't have time. Got to get back to the pizza.
I was only subject to the media pregame and halftime lunches for about 7 years in the SEC, but I got to say they treat it as well. Must be an SEC football thing.
No, the ESPN setup is we're not, as Ohio State media and the OSU press box, we are not even permitted to like look at the ESPN setup when they're doing the games because you guys have your own setup. That's like the food is all there prepared.
Nothing to do with ESPN.
Well, I just know we're not allowed to touch
with
it.
ESPN at the time.
But I'm just saying now, Mark. So
yes,
ESPN gets they got a pretty good setup too.
This was way back when. The
That's
comment
another
I was
hour.
going to make.
I want him to go in the tank. I want him to go in the tank one year so we can go back to the Outback Bowl. 20 years ago, I covered back-to-back Outback Bowls, and they give you a steak. At halftime, they bring you a blooming onion and a steak. So that's pretty good.
Steve, you want to suffer through an 8-4 Ohio State season just so you can go see them play South Carolina in the Outback Bowl and get a steak and enjoy that for about 8 minutes.
Selfish.
You
Camp was a lot of fun. Ybor City.
How many times have we traveled on the road and on the way back from Indianapolis, we go over there off of Post Road and hit that Outback? We'll just do that again, and let's just
okay.
Better season so we can spend it in a nice locale, right? I mean, nothing against the Outback Bowl. I don't want to be, I'm already not welcome at any Big Ten events for what I've said about them. Let's not get me banned from one of the steak chains.
Yeah.
This would seem unrelated to most out there, but based on the conversation here in the last few minutes about food and money, it prompts me to remind everyone that the Super Chat is on. We're talking about 3 distinguished and very knowledgeable, insightful, experienced Ohio State beat writers here with Steve Hellwagon from Bucknuts 247 Sports, Kevin Noon Rivals, Buckeye Grove, and Tony Gerdeman from Buckeye Scoop. So please keep that under consideration in regards to contributing to the efforts that they make to come on here each and every week. The hour, I don't even consider the hour the time. It's more about the value and beyond the hour, the preparation that they have to take to keep up with all of this mess. And it's typically just football and recruiting, but it's been a mess for the last 6 months or so.
Yeah, Mark, it's more than just football recruiting, especially this week where I've made multiple calls to Columbus detectives about the Haskell Garrett thing, talking to parents, talking to so many different avenues. Like I would just like to write about football, but we have not been able to do that. And there's still been no shortage of stuff going on. And it's just real quickly about the Haskell Garrett thing, just a miracle, basically, that he's already back at practice, not necessarily practicing, but back, with the team. And man, that dude is lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
Hey, Tony, can you back up just a second? And for anybody who's not aware of that situation, you'll explain it much better than I.
Yeah, we're told last Saturday night, Haskell Garrett had been at a friend's house, was walking home, came across a man and a woman in an altercation, tried to stop it, intervened, got shot by the guy, like shot in the face through one cheek, through the other, clean through, and basically got away. And then police finally came, took him to the hospital, and he spent 2 nights in the hospital and was back home. And for trying to intervene, the Good Samaritan thing is basically what we've been told, and that's what he got for it. And it's still an ongoing investigation, as far as I know. I don't think anybody has been arrested for that yet, but I don't even know how. I saw some people like, well, why didn't he call the cops, or why did cops have to find him? Go try getting shot in the face and see how your mental acuity reacts to that, and what is going through your mind when
You're going to be in shock.
Exactly. I'd be just as likely to go to UDF for some ice cream while, because your mind can't possibly be working. Your blood is on fire. Your nerves are just completely wrecked. And so don't worry about logic at that point, but just we'll eventually talk to him. I wouldn't be surprised if we talk to him about this specifically here in the next couple of weeks. I don't know. OSU is very secretive about all of their players' health, but this is a little bit more than just a football story.
Kevin, I'd like to lift your spirits by letting you know that if Ohio State and the Big Ten are not on the field this fall, that our show can be comprised of a lot of Wake Forest and Louisville and Georgia Tech talk from watching them play in the ACC. So you'll have to study up on those teams.
You can put me on the Central Arkansas show because I'm all in on them. I've seen them play twice already this year. So I actually even sort of recognize the name of 1 or 2 players now after this.
What is their nickname?
I don't know. The Pitmasters? I don't know. I'm not paying that close attention.
I think everybody in Arkansas is the Razorbacks. So I believe it's the Central Arkansas Razorbacks.
I think aren't they like the Bears? I haven't looked. I don't know. I'm trying
I don't know. I've also seen them twice, but have not watched them close enough. Mark knows. I know he knows.
I believe it is the Bears.
They are.
I don't know. But as soon as Kevin said the Bears, I believe it is the Bears. It's something bear related.
Because if I'm watching Southland football, I'm all about Stephen F. Austin and the Jacks, the Lumberjacks.
Good Lord.
There was a huge upset last night with South Alabama 2-10 last year with the nation's longest road losing streak, winning at Southern Miss as a 14-point underdog.
Yep.
How crazy do you have to be betting college football right now? I understand it, but we have you don't know right now. It's just a dangerous proposition to be putting money on college football, especially that level right now. Maybe let's wait until the Big 12 starts. But good luck if you had South Alabama, because they clearly look like the better team. It wasn't even close, basically.
Well, who felt old seeing Frank Gore Jr. playing in that game?
How about that? Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
That's crazy.
With only 32 yards rushing, but he outrushed his old man in his debut, who only had a 9-carry, 15-yard rough debut, but it's worked out pretty well for him ever since in terms of, racking up about 15 years in the NFL. All right. Guys, we appreciate you coming on as always. Again, I can't encourage everybody out there enough to check out their work, because it's phenomenal past what we get here for the 1-hour slice every week with Kevin Noon from Buckeye Grove, Steve Hillwagon of Bucknuts, and Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Scoop. And follow him on Twitter, track him down there, and especially Tony, and just kind of envision all the Rutgers tweets that get deleted. So take that into consideration as well.
I had to delete years worth of Gary Nova tweets just in case we ever pass
Gary
cross
Nova.
paths.
Yes, number 14, I believe. All right. Appreciate it, all three of you. And again, hopefully we can get together next week. And that's why everybody out there needs to subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications. That's when you know when we're going live. All right, guys, have a great weekend.
All right.
Take care.
Talking football next week.